Hey, it's Louie. I think I'm going to do a few just kind of off-the-cuff videos instead of like the Louie file. I was just going to start by sharing a little bit my testimony. I might do a few videos. I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but when I was a child, I went to church all the time. My dad. I have two older sisters, and my dad took all three of us all the time. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. We were involved in youth stuff. And as a young man, the only way I could interpret my church experience was boys aren't supposed to have long hair. You shouldn't be listening to that kind of music. Basically, what I kept hearing was, God does not want you to have any fun at all. That's the way I interpreted church. So I hated it. I didn't want anything to do with it. I wanted to get out of there as quickly as I could, and I basically, for the most part, gritted my teeth. So by the time I was 16 and got a driver's license and I got my first car, I got my first job, I was out. I was done. The first job I had, I started working. I had to work on Sundays, and boy was I glad about that, because that gave me, in my dad's eyes, I guess, and in most people's eyes, a legitimate reason to miss church. So that's what I did. I stopped going. So from the age of about 16 to about the age 30, I very seldom went to church. There was one time I got arrested, and my lawyer talked to the pastor of the church my dad was attending, and somehow finagled a way that I could do community service, which ended up being cleaning his church and, of course, going to services. Once again, here I was feeling like I had to be there, and I didn't want to be there, and I gritted my teeth and went through it. But there was only a few spotted occasions that I went to church to appease my wife. Maybe it was her birthday, maybe it was Easter or Christmas, but it was completely because I felt like that she wanted me to do it, and that was it. Till finally, at the age of 30, I started fully seeing that my life was falling apart. I'd been smoking pot and eating pills, drinking alcohol, and it had grown into a full-on IV addiction. I started using any kind of like opiate pain medication that I could stick in a needle and put in my arm. That's what I would do, and it was awful. It was hell on earth. It was waking up in the middle of the night sick. Couldn't even finish sleeping through a whole night without having to go across town to get fixed and to make myself better so I could continue what I needed to do that day. And it became a ritual. It became something I had to do 3 and 4 times a day to just not be sick, and it really is hell. Eventually, that led me to a methadone clinic, and I started going there every day. And the more you go there, of course, they give you a urine test and every month to make sure you're not using, and you have to see a counselor. It was quite an adventure, but I had made up my mind that I was getting off of drugs. So I got on methadone, and I had to see a counselor, and I had to pee in a cup. And they wanted me to go to meetings, wanted me to go to AA or NA meetings, and I just had no desire for that. But I was starting to want to go to church. I mean, that in itself is a miracle that I want to go to church, at that point. But the counselor I had told me that if I wanted to go to church, that she would count that as a meeting. And so I started just going to church and bringing her a bulletin from the church service, and she just marked it down as though I went to an AA or NA meeting. Well, little did anyone know, it wasn't very long I started going to church, and I started really seeking, because I was looking for answers. I didn't know how to live life sober. And I think somewhere deep down it was planted in me as a child that God was the way, church was the way, the Bible had the answer. But as I read the Bible, I couldn't make much sense of it. So I thought, well, I'll go to church, and that's how I'll learn about the Bible. And then when I learn about what the Bible is saying, then I can get my life in order and know how to carry on a productive, sober life. Well, that's sort of true, but sort of not. Just merely reading words on the pages of a book, even though it might be a Bible, that's not really going to fix our problem. Well, the good news is there was a revival service. Recently, someone asked me, what's a revival? So I don't want to take for granted that you know what that is. It's a series of meetings, tends to be a series of meetings that churches have where they have guest speakers, maybe one speaker, maybe one each night. Well, we had one at the church that I was going to, and on that Wednesday night, my life drastically changed forever. Me and my wife had been divorced because of my drug addiction, and we hadn't really spoken much for 2 years. Well, she went to this church, and here I was sitting with her, sort of talking with her, going out a little bit, trying to convince her I was a changed man, and she didn't trust me. She didn't believe me. Well, on this Wednesday night of this revival, I asked her, I said, do you want to go up there and pray about our relationship? And see, I thought we were having a relationship. She didn't see it that way, but she agreed, so we went up to the altar and prayed. Basically, here's my prayer. I said, God, you have to show her I mean business. You have to show her that I'm serious about being a different person. So I got up from that altar that night after I cried my eyes out, and I got in my car, and on my way home, I had an experience that I never had in my entire life. What I later figured out was the Holy Spirit moved into my life, or the Bible calls this, I was born again. I was born again in my vehicle on my way home from the church service, and my heart started pounding, and I started crying and laughing, and I really didn't know what was going on. I had no idea. But I woke up the next morning, opened up my Bible that I couldn't understand the day before, and started reading the scriptures, and I started finding out that God chooses the foolish things to confound the wise, and that without the Spirit of God you can't know the things of God. The natural man, the man without the Spirit, cannot know the things of God because they're spiritually discerned. So I started to reason, well, I'm reading the Bible, I'm understanding it for the first time in my life, and this Bible says without the Spirit you can't know or understand. Oh my gosh, the Spirit of God has moved into my life. And that's how it happened, folks. And from then on, it's been quite an adventure. And I'll probably get into a little bit more about what happened after that in the next video. So I hope you follow along with my little salvation diary here. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.